Hey everybody, welcome back to the YouTube channel. This is Max Prime representing the story arcs, and today I have a legend. I have one of the most influential writers in comics, Fabrice Sapolsky. Welcome to the story arcs. How are you doing today?
Wow, that's a presentation. Thank you very much. Like I felt overrated just listening to you.
So, for for people who don't know who you are, what your background is, please tell us your origin story.
All right. So I'm Fabrice. I live in Los Angeles, California, but I'm originally from France, where I was born and spent 44 years of my life before I moved here 6 years ago. And I was probably bitten by a radioactive comic when I was 7 years old, and I never recovered. And so I fell in love with American comics, and here we are. Writer, artist, publisher, designer, translator, editor, you name it. Uh, I, I I can probably do everything in comics. Not so much coloring. I mean, I can color, but it's not my forte. But everything else I have done or I can do, and I love it all. I love comics.
When and that in itself, like, when did you realize like you first wanted to be a writer?
It, that's very strange. So before I was a writer, I was a journalist,
Okay.
and I was a designer. So I'm basically my story is basically the story of a guy who doesn't like being said no to. And when I was in college, I studied history. History was my major, but I was very much bored, and it was like everything looked like really bland and easy. And all I wanted to do is graphic design. So I tried to go to schools, but they didn't want me, and I couldn't afford it. So I self-taught, and I became a graphic designer, forgetting my history roots. And then after like I don't know 8 9 years doing that, I was bored doing just graphic design, and I wanted to write. And people said, "Well, graphic designers don't write, so you can't write." And I was like, "No." So I'm going to do it. And this is where I decided to create my own company. And it was a company called TSC in 1998, and we created the first ever news magazine about American comics in France. And the magazine was called Comicbook, and that where everything began, because I was really green. I was really fresh off like everything. I had never been in charge of a company before. I've never been. I mean, I've been a manager, but of smaller teams. But I've never led such an enterprise. And it was really like it was a crash course. I made a lot of mistakes. I did a lot of good things too, and I had a wonderful team. And we survived as a monthly for almost 3 years, and then we were killed by competition because there was a bigger company that thought that we were a parasite, and so they decided to launch a competitor against us, and to kill us. And they succeeded. So after my first company went belly up, I was forced to go back to graphic design, which I did. But then after a couple of years, it was like I can't. I have to write again. And then I went to another company, and that other company gave me an opportunity to be editor in chief of a couple of specials that they were doing. And then they ran out of money and they couldn't pay me, so I was laid off. And then I started my second company called Full FX, and Full FX was it was a packager. And for the next 9 years, I was packaging magazines and content for third party publishers from everywhere. and this is where we deepened the relationship with the American market, and I deepened I opened my Rolodex, as we used to say. We brought back Comic Box as a bi-monthly, and one thing led to another. I met more people, and then at one point, I got this idea for Spider-Man Noir. I took it to David Hine. He rejected it. Then he changed his mind. Then we did it together. We pitched it to Marvel, and the rest is history. And once I tasted how it was to be on the other side of the velvet rope, there was no way I could go back. So I simply, it took time, but I organized my life so that I could live my dream and be in comics full time. And yes, there's a lot of sacrifices, and yes, I went through hell, but I'm still there.
Well, that being said, now since you've once you like I said, once you cross through, you open the door, you put your foot in. So how writing a comic book character? I mean, what is the process? How deep do you have to go? Like, how are you inspired by like writing like whatever character it might be, whether it be Spider-Man or Batman or whoever? Like what's the process of that? And like how long does it actually like take for you to create your own your own vision of that particular character, whatever character it might be?
One of the things that I really enjoy the most in creating characters or comics is the world building. And it can come from nothing. Like Spider-Man Noir came from an idea I had while I was shaving. Ladybird, that I'm doing right now, came out of uh, the frustration of not having healthcare in America during COVID-19 lockdown last year.
Yeah.
But also, it was also attached to a project that was public domain, and that I didn't know what to do. And both kind of like uh, collapse in a good way, and I found the key. Intertwine is another story. It's like it's the first book that I wrote when I moved to America, and I felt the urgency to write an immigrant story being fresh off the plane myself. And so, and all these came out of opportunities. I mean, what No Future that I did I published the first issue through my magazine, Mutiny, that I hope we're going to talk about. Um, that is a story that came out of a dream, and it took me 7 years to figure out how to write it.
Wow.
So not everything comes easy. It's usually complex. It's a long road. There are some ideas that I had 15 years ago that are still in the vault because they're waiting for the right moment to pop up and be fully fleshed. I have characters that I have somewhere and that I haven't put in any book yet because they're very precious to me, but I don't have the story. I have a story that is big enough to carry them. And so it's a very complex sauce to create the right world for the right characters and vice versa.
So that being said, because you mentioned Ladybird,
Yeah.
and please, can you please tell us about this awesome Kickstarter?
Yes. So this awesome Kickstarter, which has been funded like right now, minutes before we started this interview, and I'm very
Awesome.
happy about it.
Awesome.
It's Ladybird is a challenge in so many ways. First, it's my first step out of my comfort zone. It's a title that I'm not writing alone, that I'm co-writing, but most of the mechanics came from me because years ago, my friend Xavier Fournier, he was my deputy editor in chief when I was doing Comic Box in France, and then he took over the magazine when I left. And one day he comes back and he said like, "Here's this public domain thing from 1909." It was a short story, a short novel from a guy named René d'Anjou, and he was called Loiselle, Ladybird. It was in French, and it was published in a newspaper somewhere at the turn of the 20th century. And you had all the elements of this woman. Her name was Vega, the Ortega, and she came from this mystery place. But it was very vague and it was very outdated. But and I for years I didn't know what to do with it. And then when the pandemic hit, I clicked, and I was like, okay, maybe it's not so much the story of that ladybird, but it's the story of another ladybird, and they're mysteriously connected. Then I came up with this concept where you have these two women who have amazing powers. One, they're lighter than air, so they can fly. Two, their DNA and their system is flawless. They can never be sick. They can never have any kind of disease. It's perfect. But if you had such people and the rest of the world is not like them, and they come from this mysterious island that is uh, in around 100 kilometers around the Philippines and that has never been found, what do you think would happen? Greed, exploitation, and all these things are concepts that uh, I've been toying with in the book. It's still very entertaining and it's still very emotional and it's still a hero story and it's a coming of age story, but it deals with those themes. How do you free yourself if you have been used, one, as a weapon of war, two, as a supply for the drug industry?
And I was going to ask you about the character like design because it reminds me, and I know you're probably going to hear this, like it has that like anime like feel too. The
Yes,
artwork is very beautiful, and I'm like, I like my
yes,
first like that drew another question. I'm like, wow, that like was that artwork aimed to be like to have the or that like you say that comic book in anime style, just kind of like
yes,
brought
yes.
together?
It was. Oh, that's why I'm telling you, I step out of my comfort zone because like it's easy for me to write noir stories. Like I'm known for noir stories. People like, okay, well you're the noir guy. All right. So I did Spider-Man Noir. Intertwined is another noir stories. I published Noir is the New Black, which is an anthology that I did at my publisher, Press Square Comic. So noir is easy, and there will always be noir stories in my world. Now it's I wanted to show that I had other flavors in
Yeah.
in my store, and this is one of them. So before I discovered American comics, when I was a little kid, my first love was anime
Oh wow.
because where I grew up, we had access to Japanese cartoons back in the 1970s. Yes, I'm that old. um, but yeah, so the first ones that I saw were Grandizer, Battle of the Planets, Captain Harlock, Captain Future. Uh, those those cartoons really shaped my imagination. And after, of course, like all the Kamen Riders and all these Super Sentais and like all these serials, which were fascinating, where you often had like heroes that had armors or costumes like what inspired the Power Rangers. Okay,
Yes. Hmm.
but at the time we knew them under the name Bioman
See,
when I was younger.
I was gonna
or
say like
or Space Sheriff Gavin. Space Sheriff Gavin, I loved Gavin. Like I went and discovered Space Sheriff Gavin, Spectre Man, all these serials I had when I was a little kid. So uh, when it came to creating Ladybird, and especially since I did the designs myself, so I created the designs and it evolved. And then when I recruited Daniele Sapupo, the artist who is drawing the series, I gave all that to Daniele, and he refined my design, and he found uh, and he gave Mina and Vega their soul.
I was gonna mention too that like yes, I'm about 40 years old, so I know what you're talking about the anime and yeah, big fan. 'Cause I grew up
I
watching
was
all
15 years old. I was 14 when Akira came out, and it was like a shock.
Yes.
I remember collecting all the stories, the comics, and then I was about 16 when Dragon Ball hit,
Yeah.
and I was still young enough to enjoy it.
Yeah.
So all these Dragon Ball, Saint Seiya, um, City Hunter, Okuton Ken, all these, I was shaped by all this.
Wow.
And so next to my love for American comics, these cartoons were there. Oh, Space Pirate Cobra. I loved Space Pirate Cobra. It's another thing that I discovered when I was 13 years old. It was great. Um, so I mean, and of course Macross, and there are so many. Like I could spend the whole hour talking about the animes that have shaped my imagination. Sources of inspiration coming from Asia were already there. I just had to really uh, put it like create this gigantic milkshake with everything. A bit of X-Men, a bit of my own experiences, a bit of anime, and create this thing. And also, I had really a strong desire to expand my horizon and to expand my audience and to really say to people, hey, you know what? You may know me from Spider-Man Noir and Intertwine and One Hit Wonder, but I I can do other things and I love other things and I can sing and dance, you know, and that's a way of saying I can sing and dance,
Yeah.
and so it inspired me to write other things and to write differently because it's also very liberating in terms of writing. Um, it's very relaxing to write a series like Ladybird. It's way faster to write than anything else because are so the characters are basically writing the story themselves, and it's really character driven, just like manga is character driven.
Yes.
And I was really in that mindset of putting the characters front and center. That's why Vega and Mina. I hope people like these characters enough to be there and 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 try to learn what happened to them. So everybody knows, and your viewers know. So the what people are ordering through the Kickstarter right now is only the two first chapters of the story. The full book with the first six chapters of the story will be out in stores in May. But this edition that we're doing through Kickstarter has multiple covers. It has add-ons. It has stuff that is like really a collector's issue, and I hope that more and more people will take interest in Lady Bird because it's really a story that everyone can make theirs. Like if you read it, you will like a certain type of elements in it. If I read, not me because I created, but like if someone who's not your age, who's younger, reads it, they will see something else. And I tried, and with my co-writer Dawn and with everybody in the team, we tried to bake in as many different elements so that wherever you come from, it feels like home.
And that's where I had the question, like, because once the Kickstarter, now that it's fully pledged and everything, that was going to be my question, like, how will we get Lady Bird available, like, in your local comic book store? And that's awesome, like how you just said those, like, the first two chapters, and the rest will be out in stores. That's awesome.
Yeah. So the first two chapters are only through a Kickstarter; they will never be in stores.
Oh wow, okay.
So if you don't buy it on the Kickstarter, the only way to buy it after the campaign ends in 2 weeks is if there are leftover copies, they will be available with me at conventions or on the Fair Square Comics web store. But if not, you will have to wait May until you have the graphic novel.
Got it. Okay.
It will be 144 pages, I think. It's not really set in stone, but it should be between 136 and 144.
And that led to my next question, as far as for the people who are already your fans, that already know you, that do this, the whole, because you're the legend, you're the legend.
Nobody does that. of this. Nobody does that. Just the guy, I'm struggling just like everybody else.
Gotcha. So, what other passions or what other interests do you have that, like I said, 'cause you told me about the anime thing, and like what other things that your fans might not know about you?
So much. Well, first, the very important news of the day is that tomorrow, no, not tomorrow, today, we said
Today,
the 24th, okay?
the 24th.
Wednesday, November 24th.
Yes.
This comes out.
Oh.
This is Mutiny Magazine. Okay? It's 100 pages, 8.3 by 11. And it's what I would say is the thing that really I'm the most excited about, and that is not comics. Mutiny takes me back to my magazine roots. Remember when I say like I started in Comicbook magazine, so I created mine. And so Mutiny is, for the first time ever, probably in American comics history, we decided to put mainstream and indie comics under the same roof in one single inclusive magazine. And so Mutiny is that answer. Is okay, you go to the comic book store and there are so many titles you don't know you don't know where to start. Mutiny is the answer. Mutiny will give you interviews, it will give you content features and all, but also 50 plus pages of original comic stories from independent creators.
Wow, that's awesome. Wow. And that's available today.
Today, with 4 different covers. This one is Derek Robertson because we're celebrating the 15th anniversary of The Boys, which came out for the first time ever October 26, 2006. So it's been a while, and I thought it was a really good idea to celebrate that because as far as independent franchise and IPs goes, The Boys is pretty well known. But we have another cover from Gene Ha. We have a cover from Karen S. Darbo, who's becoming really big right now. And we have a mystery sexy cover by Marguerite Sauvage. So there's a lot in Mutiny, and it really is. It's my vision of how comics should be. Like it's Switzerland. Like it's not kumbaya. Let's all gather together, but almost. It really is. I wanted to break the barriers. Like okay, we know that superheroes are a dominant genre, a dominant family in a medium called comic books. But there are so many other things. So we have a story about time. We have a story about mourning the loss of a person. We have a story about a vigilante in Lebanon. We have a story. We have so many different things in there that there's something for everyone. And that's what comics are. Comics are for everyone, and there's something for everyone. And creating a magazine was the answer to that. So what we did is that back in May, we tested the idea on Kickstarter, and we got over $20,000 with our Kickstarter for Mutiny Number Zero.
Oh, wow.
And so I said, okay, well, let's do it full scale, and that's what we're doing with this issue 1 that comes out today. And I hope that people will go to their local comic book store because it's print exclusive. It's not available digitally.
Yeah.
It's only a print magazine. I really believe in print magazine. We put a lot of effort in the production values. There's a soft touch cover. There's a beautiful thick matte paper. It's something that you want to keep. It's not something that you want to throw away. And I really think that it's a good entry. It's a point of entry for people who want to discover comics and other type of comics, but can't buy everything.
Well, that's where I had a question about when you mentioned about different flavors, showing that you can besides the noir, you can write all different stories for different type of characters. My question would be like, do you find it easier to like write a character that's already in existence, or do you find it better to write just a brand new character, you know, that you just like came up with off the top of your head? And then if you did have a preference, like let's say if there was already a character that's out there, like is it easy then just to kind of like create your own story for already existing character for like for the average comic book fan, like, you know, like me from the outside, I see like, oh look, my favorite, you know, comic book character now has like a different writer like every so many amount of, you know, months in the year, year after year. So I'm always just curious, like how does that work? I mean, like which one do you prefer more, like an already existing one, or just like I said, just create a brand new one and boom, just go with it?
I don't think, no offense, I don't think it's the right question. The right question is, why am I doing these characters
Yeah.
instead of keep doing the characters that are company characters?
Ah.
And the answer is, there's not a single answer. It's actually a multiple choice answer.
Okay.
Number one, my phone won't ring. They're not calling me. So I might have started. I mean, the best and the worst thing that ever happened to me was to have my first gig at Marvel Comics,
Okay.
because it put me on the map. I'll be forever grateful for that. It allowed me to prove that you can come up with something that is completely different, that pushes a lot of the limits. Like, people don't remember this, but when we pitched Spider-Man Noir, it was January 2007. It was pre-Disney. It was another universe. There was no multiverse. There was no Spider-Verse. Marvel was not doing anything remotely close to parallel Earth or anything like that. I think the closest thing that we had was the Exiles, and they were ending that series. So they were, and at DC was the same. Elseworlds didn't exist anymore. So it was like we were in a no man's land creating this. Second, one of the things that Dave and I were the most interested in was the social and political elements of Spider-Man Noir. And for us, it was an it was a it was an opportunity to create something that was a little different, and that would cater to a different kind of audience, and who would like kind of like stretch the limit of what you can do in an American style comic book. But as time went by and the character became a success, Marvel was clearly not interested anymore in having those elements in the stories. And if you look at what they're doing right now, I mean, with Spider-Man Noir, but with all the other characters, it's completely different.
Yeah.
And so Spider-Man Noir, as I knew it, is gone. It's a time capsule. It's something that existed back in the day when I did it. And then, I mean, after we did the first miniseries, we did the second miniseries, and it was kind of like back to back. So that was cool. But then after the second miniseries, Marvel didn't call for 4 years. What did you do for 4 years when you were a writer? You stopped writing? You're waiting by the phone for Marvel to call you back? No, you create your own future, because there's no way back. And that's exactly what I did. And it's something that I often say to young creators. Young creators say, like, how can I break into comics? How can I get to Marvel, get to DC just the way you did? And I'm like, don't.
Yeah.
Don't. Do your thing. If they really like it, they will find you. It's a different thing. I'm not trying to diss anyone or be disrespectful to Marvel or DC or anything, but they are not interested in what I'm doing right now. So I'm doing it anyway because I feel that I have to do. Those stories are in me. I have to let them out. If one day some of these companies call me back and say, "Hey, by the way, we would like you to. Would you like to pitch, or would you be interested in doing this?" I would consider it. But right now, it's not on my agenda, not at all. So rather than wasting my time trying to think what I would like to write, I'd rather put all that energy into my characters, because that's the thing I have control over.
Yes. And
Makes sense.
That makes sense. Then like that led me to also the curiosity because I seen you were a part of the other project, the Kickstarter that I wanted to mention was Noir is the New Black,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
and to tell us a little bit about that one because that one like really piqued my curiosity, and I seen that like
All
over
right.
a year
So,
ago the Kickstarter.
Mars and New
And
Black.
yes, Noir, exactly.
So, let's do it all, okay? And then after Mars and New Black, intertwine.
Boom, intertwined.
So Noir's the New Black. Noir's the New Black. I mean, it's a story that I've told often. Um, came from anger. It came from so flashback. Early 2020, I am terminated by the company I was working for as a senior editor, and I was, I mean, right after that, I tried to find work and I couldn't. Like I sent 300 resumes and nobody wanted to hire me. So I remember having, and then the George Floyd murder happened, and I was very, very angry. I'm a progressive person. I have, I always say this: the Black American community is important for me, not just as a an immigrant, but also as a minority. And when I was living in my home country, being a minority, you look at and I mean the American culture, it's like soft power, you know. There's a lot of American culture that is brewing in other countries, and France is no exception. So I was literally fed with American movies, TV series, music, and all. And like most of the things culturally that I owe to the American culture, I owe it to the Black American culture. And so at one point, this was important for me to give back. And I was angry. I was angry at what was happening, but also I knew that if I was going out and participate the protests and be with in the trenches with the people in the street, I would expose myself to a lot of trouble being an immigrant because especially with the previous administration. I mean, people don't know about this, but when you're even when you're a legal immigrant, and I'm a legal immigrant, um, they tell you when they give you your green card that uh, you're a guest and that uh, you're not like the, I mean, not like you guys,
Yeah.
and a guest can be kicked out. So you have to pay attention to what you write on social media. You have to pay attention to a lot of things. And so I was kind of worried, and I was talking to my good friend TC Harris, and TC and I we met in 2017 when he was supposed to. It was at Baltimore Comic Con. It was supposed to go out a certain way, and he took another alley, and he saw my table at Baltimore, and he stopped, and he had read Spider-Man Noir, and then I pitched him Intertwined, which was just out at the time in his previous incarnation, and he bought two copies, and then he bought the third one, and we started talking, and I started mentoring him because he wanted to do more comics, and we became friends. And as we were talking to each other that day of May 2020, and I was angry, and he said, "Look, Fabrice, if you want to do something for us, he's also a Black American person. If you want to do something for us and you want to show solidarity, do something you know how to do, and it's comics." And I said, "Well, then let's do it together." And we ended up creating this thing, this anthology called Noir is the New Black that we started on Kickstarter, and this book is a miracle. This book is just the gift that keeps giving, and it became the backbone of my company, Fair Square Comics. Yes, because it's the first book that I released through the company, but it also helped create the environment, the system, the philosophy. the punchline comics from the rest of us, everything came from Noir's the New Black. So it's really it's rooted in anger, but it was transformed into positive energy to create something that benefited all those 40 black creators who kept all their rights and that were part of this project. And I was fortunate to be the guy who provided the frame. So I'm extremely humbled by this project, and we're gonna do other Noirs and New Black volumes in the future. We've been talking about it with a few creators that were with us in the first volume, others that were not, but it definitely became one of the pillars of the company. And Noirs and New Black is, I mean, I love this book, and we got incredible reviews. Can you believe that it was all done in less than 6 months?
Wow.
148 pages of comic built from the ground up in less than 6 months. That's a miracle.
Wow. Um, and that's when I was gonna say, like, with Ladybird and Mutiny. I mean, is there any like other things that like you're working on? Are you planning on like writing more and more and more, or like getting your hands into like multiple things? Like what intertwine? Uh, what's your what's on
So,
your agenda for the future? What's on your
Intertwine is very important because, again, as I mentioned, is the first book that I created when I came to America in 2015. But also, it's important because he's my Spider-Man.
yeah
He's the poster boy for my company. If you go to fairsquarecomics.com, the first image that you will see is an image of this guy, the spirit of the earth, who's the poster boy. Is the
yeah
poster boy for the company because there are values in that book that represent me and what I believe in. My vision of the world is intertwined. And so I'm working right now on a spin-off because there's this character in Intertwined that's kind of like me. um, it's I mean, in the story, it's an Asian woman posing as a man, and who fled her country to escape a forced marriage. So I'm not in that situation, but I'm the immigrant, and just like this character, I'm also a multi-ethnic and Jewish, and it was very interesting to get into her shoes and tell more about this character. She's a supporting character in the volume that was published, but she will have her own series. That's what I'm working on right now. It's one of the projects that I'm working on right now.
okay
But I'm working with an artist that is an artist from China, but she's very very slow, so it takes time to build the pages and the story. But it will be for 2022. I'm also working on another series that will debut in Mutiny number 2, because the advantage of having my own magazine is that I can test a lot of concepts. And so the same way you have No Future, which was published in Mutiny number 0 and 1, and will come back. I mean, actually, the artist Eder Messias, he he just called me up today and say, "Hey, do you have new pages for me?" And I'm like, "No, I have so much to do. I didn't have time to write anything." So um, so there's that. No Future is going to come back, and I'm going to complete the first arc. There's Lady Bird, you mentioned it, and there's Shakespeare's Vampire, which is the story that I will start in Mutiny number 2, and it will also be an anime style series. So that, I think that will like, people will like Shakespeare's Vampires. It's going to be very different. I also have other projects as an artist, but I'm so slow with all the things that are happening around, that it's very hard for me to to draw on top of everything. I mean, I'm drawing a lot of commissions. I'm taking a lot of commissions, and I'm doing a lot of illustrations and cover art. But when it comes to doing a full comic, it's such a commitment, and I have very high standards. So it's a nightmare for me. So maybe one day I can complete a long form graphic novel, but right now, writing, designing, doing cover art is the closest thing that you'll see from me in the near future. What else do I have? Because I also have like all the work that I'm doing as a freelance editor for heavy metal, which is a lot of work,
Yeah.
and I'm working with terrific people there. Um, and I have like there's a couple of other projects that I'm not at liberty to talk about right now, but with other publishers. But yeah, I mean, most of the creative work is going to go through um, Fair Square Comics because I mean, again, it's the thing that I have control over. I have another YA um, book that is planned. I have a slice of life that is planned. I mean, I have projects that are lined up in the vault and that I don't have time to complete for probably 3 to 5 years. So I'm not gonna get bored. Believe me.
Yeah. Well, and that's where like my first second to last second to last question. So will you be traveling around? Like, do you like attend different comic book conventions across the country? Because yeah, I know you mentioned like Baltimore Comic Con. Like, do you have any
Yes.
upcoming conventions planned?
This week, San
Oh,
Diego Comic Con special edition,
that's right.
table DD34. Next week,
Next week,
Emerald City Comic Con in Seattle.
Seattle.
Uh, table AA08 in Artist Alley. Then 2 weeks later, December 18 and 19, I am in Comic Con Revolution in Ontario, California. And in January, I'll be in New Orleans for Fan Expo New Orleans. And then I will be in Portland 2 weeks later, late January, for Fan Expo Portland.
Nice.
Beyond that, it's still sketchy, but I mean, those 4 shows, 5 shows already booked. So I'm
Wow.
gonna be all over the place. I might have one signing in Europe too.
Oh,
So,
wow.
dude, I have to represent.
Yes, yes.
These are my books. These are my
Yep.
company, and I have another book that comes out in stores on January 19th. No, 12th, 19th. Called One Hit Wonder, which is a book that actually was already published, but never as a graphic novel. It was published in single issues by Image Comics, but they never did the graphic novel. So I took it back. I kickstarted it. There was a Kickstarter edition that was released in 2020, and now it's going to the stores in January.
Nice.
Um, so there's that. I mentioned Ladybird in May, and there's going to be another collection of projects that is not by me, that is by a series of creators that I'm putting together that will start normally in April. But I mean, the thing is that some things take a lot of time creating the covers, creating like all the marketing material. So I'm not sure that I'm ready to announce that yet. But let's say that January from January there will be One Hit Wonder, and then February is kind of quiet. I have to recapture. But March there will be another issue of Mutiny. Then April there will be this other project. May is Lady Bird. June another issue of Mutiny, and so on and so forth. There are many other surprises that are in store.
And that being said, I was going to give you your platform here. Please, how do we follow you? How do we, social medias? Plug
Social
yourself.
media is very easy. So you have of course squarecomics.com. It's very easy. I can be followed on Twitter under my own name, Fabrice Sapolsky, all attached, or the company Fair Square Comics. It's Fair Square CMX on Twitter and on Facebook. There's 3 different ways. There's Fair Square Comics, there's Fabrice Sapolsky, and there's Art of Fabrice Sapolsky if you're interested in my art. As I always say, I'm taking commissions uh, 360 days a year. And on Instagram, it's also under my name or under Fair Square Comics. So both are valid. So yeah, I'm about everywhere, and you can text me. You can text me if you want to talk about comics, if you want to order a commission, if you want more information about the books or about the magazine. You can text me, and it's +1 323 405 9401.
That's that was good. That was good. Um, yeah.
I mean, I'm serious. I really hope that uh, people will give a chance to the things that we're doing at Fair Square Comics. I mean, I'm saying it like because nobody is like us. Like we're the only, and I mean it, we're the only immigrant and minority owned comics publisher in America. The only one.
Wow.
So supporting us is not just supporting different voices, it's also supporting an initiative that will be a platform for many other people to express themselves and to keep their own rights. Because Fair Square Comics is tailored in a way that I will never, ever take any chunk of any creator's IP. I'm not interested in that. Some other publishers are doing it, and that's fine. That's their MO. But as a publisher, I'm not interested in taking anything from any other creator. I have my own IPs. I think that they're just as good as theirs. So let's put our efforts together and put out more content and more books that is high quality, and that uh, everyone can keep their rights to. This is very important to me. The production values at Fair Square Comics are just very, very high. And for a publisher of our size, I mean, I'm really sad that you can't touch the books right now, like through the screen, and you would have to find them in a bookstore, order them, or visit me at any convention. Um, but yeah, when people see the books, they understand why we're selling it a little bit for a little bit more money than the competition, but also not just because they're technically better, but also because we want to make sure that the money goes to the creators. We're distributed internationally, nationally by Diamond Comics. We're the real deal, and I'm extremely proud of what we've been able to accomplish in less than 2 years of existence. It really means something. It's a testament to all the people that are working with me on this. So I may be the face, but we're a, we're a family-owned company. We're a moms and pops shop, and we're just you know trying to outsmart the system, to be creative, to do a lot with a lot less than many others, and hopefully people will get in and understand why we're so passionate about these stories.
Well, I was gonna give you the intro in the beginning of. I was supposed to say the legend who who has one hit wonder, intertwined. Noir is the new black, co-creator, of course, of the Spider-Man Noir, writer of the. I was gonna give you the whole rundown, but no, ladies and gentlemen, this was Fabrice Sapolsky.
Thank
Uh,
you very much.
this was again just legend writer.
No, don't say that.
Like
Legends are dead.
writer of all flavors. Like I said, the guy, so
Yes.
many different projects, and like I said, we're so excited, especially for Ladybird. That looks beautiful. Like I said,
Thank you very much.
I watched that trailer, and like I said, like I felt the emotion, and I was like, wow, that's yeah.
Exactly. Well, that means that we did a good job because that was meant to be emotional. You know what? If, I'm going to tell you something. Emotions are the reason why we're doing this. If you read a comic book and it sparks nothing out of you, then the creators didn't do a good job. or the editors killed that enthusiasm somewhere along the way. But you should feel something. How many times I read comics as a reader, and I close it, and I'm like, you got me. Comics are supposed to make you laugh, to make you cry, to make you ecstatic, to make you angry, to make you feel something. Ladybird, just like Intertwine, Noir's New Black, or any of the things that I did, this is exactly what I want. I want emotions. I'm out for your emotions. I'm the emotion sucker. And that's important because without that, it's just printed paper.
Exactly. Exactly. Because like I said, as soon as I played it, I'm like, man, now, now I'm
Now
curious.
you have to back
Very,
it.
very- Huh?
Now you have to back it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, and I really hope that people like. I mean, I could let me tell you, I could write 200 issues of Ladybird. I could also write 200 issues of Intertwine. These two series are probably my uh, the the series that I cherish the most, Ladybird and Intertwine. Strangely, and I was like noticing they all have the same pattern. Like it's immigrants taken to America against their will. Why am I doing this? I was not taken to America against my will. I came
Yeah.
freely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, there's this trope that are like, and it was my subconscious. I don't know, but yeah, I'm really glad that I can do this, that I can share those stories with the world. And again, all the other stories are great too. Whether it's Shakespeare's Vampire, you're gonna love Shakespeare's Vampire. I'm telling you, it's gonna speak to you because like I'm gonna just tell you something. Romeo and Juliet Vampire.
Wow.
Period.
Wow.
Sold.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's done in an anime style with the we're actually working with the artist we did Lisa, the artist with the covers for Ladybird.
wow.
She's gonna do the interiors for this one.
That's crazy. That's gonna look really good. As I said, like the art just got me. I'm like, whoa, that just like I visually, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean Danielle, and let me tell you, and something that people should know also is that we started doing this. We started Lady Bird early 2020, so there are over 80 pages done. So I can tell you, like, people will not have to wait forever to get their reward after the Kickstarter ends. There will be Christmas, and of course, there's very little that we can do between Christmas and New Year's Eve. But as soon as we get back to work in January, it goes to the printer, and people are going to get it in no time.
And actually, like before I even did this video, because when I like, actually seen all the anime, I had to like I had my camera positioned where all my anime statues are. And I was like, no, 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 let me move my camera just so I didn't have it in the shot, but I should have had all that type of stuff in the shot. Hold on 1 second. I'm just gonna like I had everything like in the back, but then I was like, no, no,
Yeah.
no, no.
Well, speaking of statues, like I commissioned an artist to create a figurine of Mina, the one of the two ladybirds,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it will be unveiled probably next week.
Oh wow.
Um, so yeah, and I have two animal pens. I mean, if you look at, I just posted like right now, I posted an update, and it's probably public, so you can take a look at it even though you're not a backer yet, and you will see the cool things that we have in store for Ladybird. We have animal pens, we have the stickers. I commissioned a wonderful artist that I met very recently called Alejandro Lee, and he did some chibi versions of the two Ladybirds. So we're going full anime. We're we're doing this.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, like a lot of my subscribers who watch the channel, like so they're huge. They're torn between comics and anime and like just cartoons. But
But
yeah,
that's the thing. You know what? That's the thing that I want to prove, and it's very important. Like I come from France, and in France, comics are very different. Usually, more panels. There's more of a distance between the action and the audience, and I can. I mean, I sum it up this way: European comics and French comics, in particular, have that distance. It's like being in a theater and you're watching the movie in IMAX, but from the back of the room. If you are into American comics, you're watching the same movie, but you're in the 2 or 3 front rows. So you're very close to the action and you can see them pop out everywhere and overlapping panels and stuff. But if you're in Japanese comics, manga, or manhua, or wherever you are in Asia, uh, you are in the action. You are in the screen with the characters and you're feeling them because the plot is it's not very important.
Yeah.
The characters are everything, and you forget. And look at what you like about TV series. When you're watching a TV series, you're you come for the plot, you stay for the characters. Manga is exactly the same. That's why anime works so well, and that's why American comics should learn from that. And that's why we're doing stuff like Lady Bird and Shakespeare's Vampires and all these other series that we're coming after. Because like these beyond the style, and that's another thing that I want to do is break the barriers. There will be some manga in Mutiny because when you're a reader, you can like manga and like American comics and like independence and like slice of life and like European comics. You can like everything.
Yeah.
And it's a box of chocolate and you have different flavors and you can choose from. Mutiny is that. That's why creating this magazine was so important to show that a reader is not exclusive to one thing. You can have multiple you can go to multiple churches and still be very happy because you worship one God.
Yeah. That being said, follow the man, follow the legend, follow
I
him.
can't believe I just said what I just said.
So follow him.
Thank you very much.
So many things going on.
Yes.
Ladybird,
Yes.
Mutiny, get
Intertwined.
intertwined.
Noir is the new black.
Yes.
Mutiny. I don't have One Hit Wonder here, but yes, it's here. It's around. Um, so yeah, lots of things. I mean, for a small publisher, it's not too shabby.
Follow him on Twitter, social media. Go to Fair Square Comics.
Yes,
Please
please
check out Ladybird, the Kickstarter.
check out the Kickstarter. It's until December 10th. We have very cool things in store until that we're gonna unleash and reveal. And of course, there's gonna be more Ladybird all year, all 2022.
I feel like this was an interview. This is more. I feel enlightened. I feel enlightened. I've learned a lot.
Thank you.
I've learned a
Well, I
lot.
mean, look, the comic book industry has operating in mysterious ways sometimes, and when you experience it as a reader, sometimes you don't really have the opportunity to do this out of body experience of saying, okay, how is it for other people? How is it for other people from other places? I come from other places, and I'm bringing that with me. I carry that accent with me. I carry that experience with me that is different. It's another way of doing things, and what I'm bringing to the American market is all that is all that diversity and all that the different approach of content and how to present it. That's me. How to deliver it. That's the things that we're doing at Fair Square Comics. There's so many projects that I have in my head. The problem is time and money, of course, because like when you're an independent publisher, there's so much that you can do. And I wish I could do. My favorite artist is Prince. I've always been a Prince fanatic.
Yeah.
And Prince had a vault, and Prince thought that music was like the news. You should release it as soon as it happens in your head. That's why he was recording 2, 3, 5 songs a day
Yeah.
for most of his life. And I wish I had that talent. I don't, but it's clearly a model, as in when I have an idea, I don't let it die. I develop it and I put it in the vault, and when it's ready, it will be put in the oven, baked, and served. Right now, I don't have the possibility of doing everything that I want. If not, you would have a Fabrice Sapolsky title every week, but I can't.
Yeah.
One day.
I mean, that's it's it's like you have endless ideas. Like it's like kind of like a faucet, right? Like a leaky faucet that's not. There's no off switch. It just keeps on.
Well, that's all creative. That's
Yeah.
all. Creative people don't have an off button. They don't have a mute button.
Yeah.
You can't do that. Like, I mean, I'm talking to so many other of my peers, and we're all the same. We're all the same. Like you can't stop us. There's always something. Like we're watching the news, we have an idea. We're in the toilet. We're in the toilet. We have an idea. We're in the shower. We have an idea. We're in the car. We have an idea. Ideas pop at every moment of our lives,
Yeah.
and everything can be turned into a story. Now, execution is what will make your story worth reading, and that's why not everyone is doing what we do. But and it's hard. It's really hard. And let me tell you, as an editor myself, I'm very hard and very harsh with what I deliver. Sometimes I am my worst critic.
Yeah.
Like I would say, okay, what I did here is not good enough. So I'm not gonna put out. I'm gonna let it in and give it another round of cycles until it's ready. And sometimes I will be very enthusiastic and I will put it out and I will regret because it would not be my best work. So you have to be very realistic and pragmatic about what you're doing, but you can't stop. And it's the same for drawing. I mean, when I started drawing a few years ago, and again, I was self-taught, so it was like, okay, some of my drawings will be shit. That's okay. I have to keep moving because I have to keep practicing until my level is decent enough so that people will buy my stuff. And now, I mean, I can see it. Like sometimes I will post something and I will have 0 likes. And sometimes I will post something I will have 100 likes. And that's the way it is.
Yeah.
Now, Marvel didn't become Marvel in a day. It took 40, 50 years
Yeah.
for them to be where they are. And they went through hell. They went through bankruptcy. They went through phases where they had no money, where they had to fire their staff multiple times. It is what it is. And so I have time. I know that when I get frustrated because I don't get the visibility that I would like to, or I don't have the recognition that I want, I have to be patient and I have to be humble because it will come one thing at a time. And again, that's what I was telling you in the beginning of our conversation. We're only human, and we can only give you what we have in us. And I know that what I'm doing is not for everybody. I mean, you can't sometimes like One Hit Wonder when it was released had the worst critics, the worst reviews I've ever read of any comics. Sometimes like there was some guy who said like I'm giving it a 1 out of 10 because 0 would be insulting, something like that. And 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 they were right. So what I did is that when I reworked One Hit Wonder to make it a trade paperback and a collection, I rewrote the dialogue to the whole first issue and I added more content at the end to make it a more cohesive and better volume. And as a result, the reviews were better. So sometimes it's a question of not being at the right place at the right time, and you have to give it time.
Wow. Well, if you like, see, totally enlightened during this video. I swear. Okay, so for the people out there, follow Fabrice. Um, like, share, subscribe, comment, leave a comment. Please follow
Yes,
him. Check out
yes.
Ladybird. Check out Mutiny. Check out all the future projects that this man is bringing to you. Because, like I said, just legend status. That's him. Okay, that's him. Please follow him.
Thank you for to all your viewers and to yourself for having me on the show. And it was fun. Let's do that whenever you want.
I'll hold you to it. I'll hold you to it. So,
Thank you.
again, like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, guys. That's it. We're out.